Hello, folks. I am back finally with another review. It's been kind of a quiet summer in 2025 for new heavy metal releases that caught my interest, but I have followed the cold path all the way to the new Autrest album, which is dropping September 5th on Northern Silence Productions. So yes, Autrest's second album, Burning Embers, Forgotten Wolves, is coming out this month on Northern Silence Productions. This is a band I've been excited to see what their sophomore album would sound like. I really enjoyed the debut album a couple of years ago and was wondering how the band would fare on the next outing. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Autrest, this is a one-man black metal project from Brazil. And they have an interesting style as showcased on that debut album. They have one foot in traditional black metal territory, with some harsher sort of, orchard vocals, certain production techniques. But they also have one foot in the more melodic end of the black metal spectrum with cleaner guitars, keyboards, synthesizers, and more sort of quiet, tranquil, sad but peaceful moments interspersed in the songs too. So they're kind of straddling that line between a raw black metal sound and a more melodic black metal sound. And personally, I think they struck an excellent balance on their debut album. I like the way they used both styles and interwove them with each other, not just grafting one onto the other and not using too much of one and just sprinkling in tiny bits from the other end of the black metal spectrum. Would they repeat the formula on the new album? Well, let's talk about that. Burning Embers, Dying Wolves starts out with a short instrumental piece called Lobos, and yes, right away you get the sense that they're probably going to be doing the same thing. The intro is relatively calm, serene, but it's building things up. It's getting you prepared to take another journey. And that is one thing that I like about Autrest's music. It does have a healthy dose of that escapism within it. That when you listen to an album like this, I'm not going to go as far as to say like it transports you to another world, but it definitely kind of puts you in the place and the mindset that you're thinking, yeah, I can sort of picture the landscapes that are supposed to surround me when listening to this music. And that, yeah, you can kind of feel those waves of isolation, sadness, loneliness, but there's also sort of a calm to it. This isn't like suicidal, depressive black metal whatsoever. It's also, to be very clear, not shoegaze or post anything type metal. The closest they come to borrowing elements from that end of things is maybe in some of the cleaner guitar tones. But again, they're sticking, a little more to just melodic black metal, not going all the way into, shoegaze territories or such, which again is something I appreciate. They can use a little bit of that, but they don't go overboard. So when they transition into that first song, Ashes from the Burning Embers, you quickly realize that yes, Autrest is sticking to Autrest territory. They're not venturing out and doing anything radically different on this album. They're just building upon the really solid foundation they laid on their debut album. So as you can hear, again, they've got parts of the songs have, again, a raw sound to them. This is true especially in the vocals, which have an interesting production where they sound relatively distant. They're not really echoey, but it does sound like they're being recorded kind of farther away from you, like you're hearing them come up through a well. Not like a deep, deep cavernous well or anything. Yeah, a relatively nice well. But it was still, there's some distance between you and the vocalist, and that gets through in the production. The rhythm section also tends to have a little bit of that coarser production quality to it in the drum sound and the main riffs that are going on. But on top of that, as you can hear, you've got a lot of cleaner elements. The guitars, whether they're different types of synthesizers, hints of folk music and instrumentation get sprinkled in. Those have a much cleaner and brighter sound, and they're able to shine through against this sort of, slightly murkier, rougher backdrop of like the drum and bass sound. The bass lines on the album are actually quite good too. They don't jump out at you in the mix, but if you listen closely, they are there. It took me a few listens to notice them, and I think they will kind of turn up better depending on how your stereo is set up. I don't hear them on headphones so much, but I definitely hear them when I play this in my car. My car stereo is, yeah, set up to be a little bit more bass heavy. The second full track, Forgotten Wolves, dials up the velocity and ferocity a little bit. It kind of leaves some of those cleaner elements behind for a track that focuses more on that pure black metal aesthetic. So the band's making it a point here early in the album to show some different sides and that not every song is going to follow the exact same template. And I think that is a very smart decision. So after these first two tracks, we get another very short instrumental piece. And I like the placement of this song because there's been two full songs showcasing slightly different angles for the band. And now they're giving you a minute to sort of pause, reflect on those two elements before going into the third full-length track. On albums like this, where you are using a decent amount of melodic black metal, songs can run together and not always in a positive way. They can just start to sound very samey and are hard to differentiate. Putting the instrumental here to just take a very short intermission before moving on in the album, I think that helps the listener digest what they've already heard and prepare themselves to work through the last four tracks on the album. And the last four are all full length songs. Coming out of that instrumental track, we have Ruins of the Lost. And for me, this is the real highlight on the album. The song comes out of the gate developing a very triumphant kind of sound, falling into a marching beat that's actually relatively catchy for a black metal track. It's really well placed in the album, coming out of that just calm, sort of quiet instrumental. This immediately re-energizes things. There's no slow build-up this time. It's like, let's get right back into something that has a little bit more of a grand aesthetic to it. And this highlights something else that I really like about this album. The tracks are sequenced very, very well so that these songs are best experienced as a full album listen. The individual songs are fine and stand alone okay. You can listen to one or two tracks, no problem. They work well. But I think the ultimate experience for this album is to sit down and listen to it from start to finish. It shows that they really thought about how to order the tracks, how to deal with transitions from one to the other, so that they really flow together in a very positive way, making the entire experience better than the sum of its parts. But yes, Ruins of the Lost, definitely the highlight track of the album. Really great sound here. And yeah, this kind of more triumphant vibe to the music is something a little bit different for Autrest, but it works incredibly well. Across the last three tracks on the album, you have one that goes back to being a little bit on the faster, more aggressive side of things with Forsaken, and the last two kind of stick to that more mid to slower pace. Album closer, Chasms of Time, really wraps things up very nicely. The feels like the track gradually slows in pacing so that it's almost like you're coming in for like a very soft, gentle landing at the end of this journey. Some of the main melodies in the track also are very similar to melodies from the first full track on the album. So it almost feels like you've come full circle here at the end of the album and you're back where you started, kind of reflecting the whole cyclic nature of things, moving through the different seasons of the year and eventually coming right back to the beginning of that cycle as well. As you listen across these different tracks, something else you'll notice along the way is that there is some different instrumentation sprinkled in. There's a use of flutes, wind sound effects, other folk instruments that I can't really pin down, some piano work, some things that might be harp. Um, and these elements really do a nice job of adding a little bit of a folky highlight, just some accents to the music overall. Again, they are not overdone. There's not like, one song that's nothing but, flute and harp solo, but they do accentuate the music rather than starting to bury it. It reminds me a bit of a band perhaps like Sayor, but whereas Sayor does that, all the time in every single song, Autrest is using it very sparingly, but to maximal effect. In conclusion, Autrest, on the one hand, does very much feel like a Northern Silence Productions band. I like a lot of stuff that comes out on Northern Silence Productions. However, the label has developed a certain sound. It's bands that are in that melodic black metal territory, and some of them stray too far into the melodic part of that genre description. Black metal tends to need to be a little bit raw and coarse and dangerous feeling. If it gets overly symphonic and melodic, at least for my tastes, that doesn't hold up very well. And some Northern Silence, bands, they just don't have any staying power when I listen to them because they just sound a little too sweet and melodic. And it's like, where's the black metal part? Autrest, on the other hand, does a very good job of avoiding that pitfall. Again, with the vocal style in particular, but also with the drum performance, and those deeper parts in the rhythm section, they make sure this is grounded in more traditional black metal music. So yeah, what makes Autrest really stand out is their ability to blend that, darker black metal sound with the melodic elements that do highlight what you would expect with a Northern Silence production release. For some folks, this may be a negative. If you're somebody who really wants your black metal to be completely, murky, pitch black, raw, you know, Marduk, Profanatica, stuff like that, this album is going to be too melodic for you. And if you're somebody who really only likes the melodic symphonic stuff, well, in that case, this album may sound a little underproduced and a bit murky for certain elements. It may not be melodic enough for you. But for my tastes, I think they hit it just right. And I really like their take on using the best parts of both styles and making it their own. So yeah, would definitely recommend checking out the new Autrest album. And again, Burning Embers, Forgotten Wolves will be out on September 5th. All right, now for just a very quick call to arms. I don't have a promo available for this album, so I can't really share a lot of details about it. But I've noticed that Faytooth, the Los Angeles, California Fairy Doom band, is coming out with their second full-length album, also releasing on September 5th. This one's coming out on the Flenser label and is entitled Labyrinthine. Folks may remember Faytooth's debut album from a few years ago. It made some waves and definitely got attention here at Heavy Metallurgy, with several of our colleagues really enjoying that album. Since that time, Faytooth has undergone a couple of lineup changes, so I'm interested to see what the new album is going to sound like. They have released a few singles through Bandcamp in advance of the album, and all three of the singles have sounded really, really good. Maybe, slight difference in sonic elements compared to the debut, but still operating that overall same area where they have, a doomy, sludgy component, but with a very kind of dreamy atmosphere mixed into it. So hopes are high that Labyrinthine is going to be just as strong an album as their debut. We'll find out on September 5th. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this review. Check out other content here on heavy metallurgy. And yes, while it's been kind of a quiet summer for getting reviews done, there are a lot of albums coming out through the fall of the year that are already on our radar. So we'll probably be getting back into more of a review cycle on a weekly basis in the very near future. That's going to do it. So until next time, everybody take care. And as always, keep banging your head.